The 6 actors who didn't go to John Wayne's burial. Marion Robert Morrison was born on May 26, 1907, in Winterette, Iowa. He became John Wayne. Wayne's family moved to Southern California when he was young, but they didn't have a lot of money. He was a promising student and athlete as a young man, and he got a football scholarship to the University of Southern California. But a bad accident ended his plans to become an athlete, making him re-evaluate his future. This failure eventually led him to the film industry, where he started working behind the scenes at Fox Film Corporation, doing odd jobs while learning the ins and outs of filmmaking. During this time, director John Ford, who was one of the most influential people in Wayne's life, saw his promise and started to teach him. Wayne's early career was full of hard work and being unknown for years. He acted in hundreds of low-budget movies in the 1930s, mostly westerns, when he honed the on-screen demeanor that would later make him famous. Ford's famous Western Stagecoach in 1939 was Wayne's big break. It turned him from a struggling actor into a huge star virtually immediately. Wayne's performance as the Ringo Kid was fascinating because it combined toughness, vulnerability, and quiet charm. This changed the idea of the Western hero. From then on, nothing could stop his ascension. John Wayne starred in more than 170 movies over the next few decades, making him one of Hollywood's most reliable box office draws. Some of the most famous pictures in American film came out of his work with John Ford. These include My Darling Clementine, She Wore a Yellow Ribbon, The Searchers, and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Wayne's performances became more complicated in these movies, especially in The Searchers, where his portrayal of Ethan Edwards showed darker, more ethically troubled sides of the frontier myth. People often say that this character is one of the best he has ever played and that it changed how Western heroes were shown on cinema. Wayne also became known for war movies that showed both his own beliefs and the attitude of the country at the time. Films like Sands of Uoma, The Longest Day, and In Harm's Way showed him as a strong, steadfast figure. Men who set a good example and took on responsibility without complaining. He got his first Academy Award nomination for his work in Sands of Uoma, which showed how deeply he could feel in characters that were usually stoic. Wayne was often linked to traditional masculinity, but he showed a lot of diversity during his career. He might be funny and self-aware, like in the movie McClintock, or tender and thoughtful, like in The Shootist, or softly romantic, like in many westerns and adventure movies. The Shootist, 1976. His last movie was a touching goodbye not just to Wayne, but to a whole era of Hollywood. Wayne brought a personal touch to the part of an old gunfighter who was about to die. The movie is a profound meditation on legacy, death, and dignity because the actor fought cancer in real life. John Wayne won the Academy Award for Best Actor in 1970 for his role as Rooster Cogburn in True Grit, which is one of his most famous roles. The character was rough, imperfect, yet unexpectedly kind, which wonderfully captured the aspects that fans loved about Wayne. The Oscar was a long overdue honor for a career that was based on continuity, honesty, and a strong connection with his fans, not on trends or reinvention. John Wayne's personal life was just as dramatic, complicated, and full of passion as many of the famous parts he played on screen. Marked by passionate loves, difficult marriages, and a huge, close-knit family that stayed important to him until the end of his life. Wayne married Josephine Alicia Science for the first time in 1933. When he was still trying to make a name for himself in Hollywood. Their marriage happened at the same time as his early rise to prominence, which meant long hours on set, money problems, and the stress of a job that required him to travel all the time. Even though they cared about each other, Wayne's rising fame and the responsibilities of his job steadily tore them apart. During their 12 years of marriage, they had 4 children: Michael, Mary Antonia, Patrick, and Melinda. Michael and Patrick both went on to work in the film industry, and they would carry on the Wayne tradition in different ways. Wayne's marriage ended in divorce in 1945, leaving behind a hard emotional chapter in his life. Wayne married Esperanza Chata Bauer in 1946. She was a beautiful Mexican actress with a fiery personality that was similar to his own. Sadly, this marriage turned out to be one of the most difficult ones he has had. There were a lot of fights, jealousy, and emotional ups and downs in the marriage, which made it feel more like a tense place to be than a place to be with someone. Wayne and Barr's marriage started off as a passionate love affair, but it rapidly turned into a very miserable one. After years of problems, they got divorced in 1954. The event stuck with him and made him even more sure that fame made it hard to keep love and stability. That same year, Wayne married Polar Pleat, a stunning Peruvian actress who at first made him feel peaceful and grounded. Their marriage lasted far longer than his other marriages and had 3 children, Isa, John, Ethan, and Marika. This made Wayne's family bigger and made him an even more dedicated parent. Wayne's job, his stubborn mentality, and their different expectations eventually pushed them apart, even though they had a lot of wonderful times together. They split up after 19 years of marriage, but they never officially divorced. They still have a confusing yet strong bond. After he and Parr broke up, Wayne found consolation in company in Pat Stacey, his former secretary. In the last few years of his life, the two fell in love and lived together. Pat stayed with him despite his decreasing health and the personal problems that come with getting older and sick. She was loyal, caring, and emotionally supportive. Wayne's contact with them, which was not normal for the period, gave him a sense of security and companionship until he died in 1979. Putting an end to a life that was as daring and powerful off-screen as it was on. Hollywood lost one of its biggest and most controversial stars when John Wayne died on June 11, 1979, at the age of 72. Wayne was more than just a movie star, he was known around the world as the Duke. He stood for strong individuality, outspoken patriotism, and traditional American principles. Family, close friends, and many people in the industry who loved his work attended his funeral at Our Lady of the Angels Church in Los Angeles. However, just as important as those that attended were the famous people who didn't. In some cases, their absence was due to ideological differences that had been going on for decades, personal conflicts, or strong moral objections to the guy Wayne was so openly. John Wayne never tried to be neutral. In a contentious 1971 interview, he said, "I believe in white supremacy until the blacks are educated to a point of responsibility." This further added to his reputation as a lightning rod for criticism. He also said, "I'm not ashamed to be an American, and I believe in America first." Some people fully agreed with these feelings, while others entirely disagreed. It was no surprise that Jane Fonda wasn't there. Fonda and Wayne had very different ideas, and they were very open about how much they hated each other. Fonda was a passionate anti-war activist throughout the Vietnam War, whereas Wayne was one of Hollywood's most vociferous supporters of U.S. military engagement. Wayne famously told protesters, "They call it protest. I call it betrayal." Later, Fonda remembered Wayne being quite rude to her at a party, making it apparent that they could never get back together. Going to his funeral would have gone against all she believed in. Marlon Brando was the opposite of how Wayne saw the world. Brando was politically progressive, very critical of American imperialism, and a supporter of Native American rights. He openly repudiated the myths that Wayne helped make famous. Brando hated how Hollywood made conquest seem great. Once said that Westerns glorify genocide. Even though the two icons were the most popular actors of their day, they didn't appreciate each other. Brando's absence was a discreet but strong statement of principle. Paul Newman was known for his liberal activism and humanitarian work, even though he kept his political views to himself. He was against the Vietnam War, supported civil rights, and gave money to progressive causes. These views were far different from Wayne's open conservatism. Wayne famously made fun of liberal actors by remarking, "A lot of actors act like they're thinkers, but I never did." Newman didn't often get into public fights, but he stayed away from Wayne for the rest of his life, and that distance stayed when he died. Burt Lancaster was another actor whose beliefs were far different from Wayne's. Lancaster, who was smart, politically active, and publicly critical of McCarthyism and right-wing extremism, saw Wayne as a symbol of a Hollywood worldview he didn't agree with. Lancaster thought that performers should question authority, while Wayne thought that actors should defend it without making excuses. They respected one another as craftsmen, but their philosophical differences never went away. James Garner, even though he was in the military, got disillusioned with how war was glorified and became more and more critical of strict patriotism. Later, he said that Wayne was a good actor but not someone I agreed with. Garner didn't like how Wayne acted like a bully in Hollywood and how he often confused disagreement with betrayal. He didn't go to the burial since he liked being independent. Harry Belafonte wasn't there because of civil rights issues. Belfont couldn't ignore Wayne's racist ideas because he was a close friend of Martin Luther King Jr. and had been an activist his whole life. "I don't feel we did wrong in taking this great country away from them," Wayne commented once. A comment about Native Americans that made Belfont and many others very angry. Just because Wayne was famous didn't mean you had to agree with him. Ultimately, John Wayne recognized his polarizing nature. "I don't think you should say sorry for being who you are," he declared near the end of his life. Those statements showed how strong he was and how alone he was. The actors who didn't go to his burial weren't just making a social choice. They were making a last line between the man Wayne was and the America they wanted to live in. His legacy lives on, and millions respect it while just as many criticize it. And maybe the silent chairs at his burial are the best way to show how complicated it all is. Not because you forgot, but because you believe it. On June 11, 1979, he died quietly and sadly at the UCLA Medical Center from stomach cancer. His death brought an end to a life distinguished by determination, resilience, and a lasting impact on those who knew him personally and professionally. He was surrounded by doctors' care, but he left behind a deep sense of loss that would be felt long after he left the hospital. His death spread swiftly, and friends, coworkers, and fans who had followed his path for years were sad because they couldn't believe he was gone. After he died, he was buried at Pacific View Memorial Park Cemetery in Corona del Mar, which looks out over the peaceful Newport Beach coastline. The calm setting, with its soft coastal breezes and quiet surrounds, was a fitting place to rest, one that showed both dignity and tranquility after a life that had seen both successes and failures. Family, close friends, and mourners came together to say their last goodbyes. They honored his memory by quietly thinking about him and remembering him with love. His earthly journey came to an end that June day, but his legacy lived on in the hearts of those he touched, making sure that he would never be forgotten. The Playboy interview came back in February 2019, and some started calling for John Wayne Airport to be renamed. Ethan, Wayne's son, defended him by saying, "It would be wrong to judge someone based on an interview that is being used out of context." During the George Floyd protests in June 2020, people called for the airport's name to be changed back to Orange County Airport. However, the name has not changed as of 2026.